Welcome back, guys. Day 6. It's Adrian from centrecourt.com.au with you. Today I just wanted to cover briefly how to pick a coach. So this course was not designed to replace a coach. It's more just to get you up and running, particularly if you just want to give it a go yourself and see if tennis is right for you, or you have a child and you've got a racket and you want to make sure your child starts on the right foot. But if you want to pick a coach, and there's a lot of good reasons to have a coach. They can see things that you wouldn't be able to see easily. What are the good qualities? What are the qualities of a good coach? I'll break it down into 3 parts for you to make it nice and easy. Number 1, knowledge. Number 2, communication or teaching. And then number 3, everything else, right? Now, number 1, knowledge, self-explanatory. Do they know what they're talking about? And have a look at them play. You can do this sort of spy on them from afar, but do they kind of look like what you've seen on TV? So, to exaggerate, but if the coach is, holding the racket the wrong way round, or they seem to be falling over all the time, or they're swinging and missing at balls, you probably don't want that person being your source of expertise on tennis, right? So the knowledge, the skills, that's pretty self-explanatory. The communication and teaching, well, I can have all the knowledge in the world, how to make you the best tennis player. If I can't teach you, what's the point? There's absolutely no point. And I think all of us have had teachers or worked with people. We know they know their stuff. They know their stuff, but they can't teach it. So there's a big difference between being a good tennis player and being a good tennis coach or a great tennis coach. And I think a lot of that comes down to their ability to teach, to communicate, and to be supportive. That's number 2. The third part, which I personally believe is important, is all the rest. Now, it might come down to simply how much the coach charges. It might come down to, do they turn up on time? Do they dress professionally? Do they communicate with you well? I've worked with some coaches that turned up hungover. I mean, all that, I'm sure you'll notice that. And it's self-explanatory again, but it is important. It's sort of the intangibles. The other thing that's intangible, but I think incredibly important, especially if it's your child that's learning, how good a role model is the coach? I've had the privilege of having students with me now for 10 years, literally 10 years, from when they were 5, 6 years old, that tall, to now they've finished high school, they're in university, and they're almost as tall as me. And the best feeling is when the parent sends me an email and goes, the tennis was fantastic, but you've been a great friend or a great mentor. And there aren't many great role models in society these days for your kids, for your preteens, for your teens. You look at most celebrities and most of them are in the news because they're in rehab or they've gone on a bender and they've just got arrested for a DUI or something like that. So hopefully you're a great role model as a parent, but you want the people who have the most to do with your children, obviously, to be role models of what's possible in life. So your teachers, your coaches, and the tennis coach should be no exception. So look for someone who can build rapport with you, is professional, but also is a good role model. Here's a big one, and you get this in any job. Do qualifications matter? My answer is no more, no less than in any other industry. Qualifications in the tennis industry probably a little less formalized or have been formalized for a shorter amount of time than a lot of other industries. So I wouldn't say the qualifications are quite on par yet with like a university degree. However, if you want to go and look for a qualified coach, you can. But what's wrong with having a session with a coach, seeing how it goes, using the 3 guidelines I gave you, so knowledge, teaching, and the role model aspect? If they can do all those 3 things and they're not qualified, I'd say hire them. On the other hand, if they don't know what they're talking about, they can't teach, and they're a hopeless role model, but they're qualified, you're not going to hire them. So qualifications you can ask, but it really, there are certain people that find it important, and there are people like me who are much more interested in, can you actually do what I'm paying you to do? So 6 of one, half a dozen of another, up to you. Now, do you need a coach? Is it enough to just play? Of course it's enough to just play. If you just want to be a beginner, have some fun, or your children just want to have some fun, it's a social thing, there's nothing wrong with just playing. Maybe you can hire a coach every now and then just to have a one-off lesson. have a look, give you a bit of a tip. But I can't tell you the number of people who've had sort of too many lessons because you just keep giving them tips, but they never actually go out and practice and they forget by the next time they come through. So I'm getting lots of money, but they're not really improving as fast as they could because they don't ever actually get out there and play. So the playing part, the just playing part, I can't overemphasize how important that is. So you want to be playing first off. If you do want lessons, you've got two routes. One is the group, one is private. Private lesson, think of it as a as a fine tuning. So have a private lesson if you have a particular problem or your child has a particular problem, and this would normally be a slightly more advanced player, and say, look, I've got this problem on my backhand, can I hit a few for you? You tell me what's wrong. So I want you to be, if you're going to have a private session, I want you to be able to tell me what the problem is that I can fix. I don't think you want a private lesson and then you tell the coach, oh, it's not really I want anything, it's just that I could afford the private lesson because they're more expensive, right? And I just thought I'd have a one-on-one. Just have a hit with their hitting partner. You can hire a hitting partner. They won't coach you, but you know they're very good players. They'll charge less and they can just hit with you. So private lesson is a fine-tuning session. Group lesson is brilliant if you don't have someone that you can hit with. So obviously there'll be other people in the group, and if you don't know any other people in the local area that play tennis, what a great way to meet some people that do. Or if your child doesn't know anyone who plays tennis at school, let's say, or your school doesn't have a tennis program for your child, what a great way for you to meet other parents and other children who are playing tennis in the local area. So that's one of the main upsides of a group lesson. It's also going to be cheaper, and what you'll spend most of the time doing, hopefully, is just hitting. Because you could have 4, 8, 12, I don't know how many ever people in a group lesson, the coach won't have time to spend a lot of time correcting you the same way they would in a private lesson. And frankly, if they are spending all that time correcting you, well, all the other people aren't getting any attention, any coaching attention. So, and that's not good for them. So a group lesson is more, so you can meet other people, so the social aspect. You should be hitting a lot of balls. It's kind of like just having a hit, but it's more structured because the coach will say, all right, well, today we're going to rally, but we're going to focus mainly on backhands, for example. And the group lesson is a bit cheaper. I won't go too much into how much lessons cost because it varies wildly depending on where you live, frankly. Or I can tell you on the North Shore of Sydney, a group lesson, you know, starting from when you're 5 years old, it's a half-hour lesson, can probably be under $100. By the time you're getting really good and advanced and you've got a group lesson for 2 or 2.5 hours, it could be easily $400. And that's normally for a term. And a term is probably about 9, maybe 10. 9, let's say between 7 and 10 weeks. So between, let's say, $100 and $400, but depending very much on how long they go for and what's standard. Private lessons for half an hour, anywhere between $45 and $50 for half an hour. And up to an hour probably is going to set you back $80 or $90 an hour. That should include the court hire. So, and court hire normally is about $20 an hour, so that's coming out of the coach's fee. So that's basically, that's an overview of the pricing, but it's probably more important you find someone that's good at coaching rather than picking the $5 or $10 an hour here. So, I mean, if you pick the cheapest coach, there's probably a reason that they're charging less. So just bear that in mind too. Where do you find a coach? Google tennis coach and then put in your suburb or your postcode. That'll work pretty much anywhere in the world. If that doesn't work, I mean, it will work. But if you want another way of doing it, you can Google the tennis body, the body that governs tennis in your country. So in Australia, it's Tennis Australia. You go to their site, and they have what they call a Find a Coach service, where you can put in your postcode and it will show you a list of their qualified coaches in your local area. Having said that, we've talked about, qualified coaches. It's no guarantee those coaches are good. There could be very good coaches that aren't qualified and they won't pop up in such a search, so bear that in mind. The other thing is, as was the case in Australia, in New South Wales anyway, there were 3 bodies. I think there's now only 2, but there were multiple coaching bodies. So really, to do your thorough research, you'd have to put that search into each local body. because each one would only give you their members, obviously not the other members. But do the Google thing. Honestly, if your coach can't be bothered having some sort of online presence, then they're probably not a coach that's that interested in tennis, and they're not worth your time anyway. But guys, that's it for day 6. So honestly, if you want some coaching, it's a great thing, but you absolutely don't need to have it. I'd much rather see you out here just having fun, and if your technique is not great, who cares? Enjoy yourself, get active, get healthy, that's what it's about. Adrian from centrecourt.com.au. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow for our last day, day 7. Take care.